Yeah, everybody wants to win their home rally. I mean, we really wanted to win it. We'd led it every year since '91 at some point. Eventually it was going to come right.
My ambition at the end of the day is to be world champion, and to win the RAC is one event on the way to being world champion. If we can continue next year as we have been at the moment, then there's a possibility.
It was a funny season because it sort of, I suppose like most years with Colin, there were big ups and big downs. You know, there was sort of, Colin didn't take second places. It was either we're going to win or we're probably going to be sitting at the side of the road somewhere.
The '95 season didn't start well, and on the championship's penultimate round in Catalonia, with McRae leading fellow Subaru driver Carlos Sainz, there was controversy when he was told to slow in favour of his Spanish teammate.
I don't think it was as bad as people like to make out. You know, there was tension there on occasions. They're two extraordinary competitive characters, and one of them was going to be world champion. But I think behind it all there was an extraordinary respect on both sides as well, so it probably wasn't as difficult to manage. Actually, looking back, it probably was difficult to manage, but there we go.
Controversy in Catalonia and trying to sort that out. Obviously there was a bit of a disagreement between Carlos and myself, so I had to sort that out, and then it was going to be a fairly major fight anyway, so there was quite a lot of hype round about it. We were in equal points racing for the World Championship, so there's no way there could ever be team orders in that situation.
The Scots' determination and skill outdrove Sainz over the forest stages, and in Chester on a dry November afternoon, the first British World Rally Champion was crowned.
You win the World Championship, it's not something many people do, so the whole thing ended on an absolute high. We had some incidents during the rally, but you know, we didn't ever believe that we weren't going to win that rally. It was something that was going to happen.
We were at the end of the last stage, and you know, even when you think it goes into the last stage, it's going to be all right. Your fingers are crossed. You know, it could be a puncture, it could be anything. So it was a big sigh of relief when we saw him crossing the flying finish, because we were there at the stop board at the end.
Anyone who stood there in that crowd on that day and was part of that whole process of seeing a young Scottish driver come through to be world champion, you cannot describe the emotion of the people involved in that. And for me, people ask me, you know, what is the one day in my motorsport career I remember most? And one might have thought it was when Ari and I won the championship all those years ago, or other successes we've had, but I can honestly say it's that day in Chester.
Honours followed that '95 success, a third place in the BBC Sports Personality of the Year and an MBE for services to motorsport in 1996. But he was to become a favourite with a completely different fan base, thanks to a computer game bearing his name.
At the time, you know, he was the world champion, and interest in rally was at an enormous kind of peak. So we were looking for somebody to front the game, and Colin was the obvious and the perfect choice.
It was never, oh yeah, we're going to do that. It was one of these things, let's go along with these people and see what can happen here. But once you get into it, and once you saw what was happening, he put an awful lot of effort into these games, and you know, to make sure that you could get it as good as it could be at the time. And since then, you know, that's 10 years. In every game, I would say more recently he's had more input into them.
I think his driving and his spectacular style did all the talking for the spectators, but then the rally game, of course, opened it up to a load of new youngsters who really thought Colin McRae was just a fictitious character.
Indeed, in America, you know, for many years, they believed he was sort of a Lara Croft type figure. He didn't actually exist, but so that obviously has given him a wide acclaim throughout the world.
He would pick up the game and he'd just be able to nail the fastest lap time, you know, as fast as our guys in the studio, and these are guys that, you know, have worked on the games for years, which was kind of typical of Colin, because he just got in there and understood it.
However, in the real world, things were changing for Colin. Mickey Grist replaced Eric Ringer in the co-driver's seat, and in 1999 he signed for Ford on a contract worth £3 million a year.
Ford were really looking to push the launch of the new car, because what we actually did was we launched the rally car at the same time as the road car was launched, which is something that never really been done before as well. And we felt to really give it the lift that it needed as well, and plus what Colin had obviously done for Subaru over the years, when you think how it made them into basically what they are today. It was a very strategic plan from the Ford point of view. You know, it was just fantastic to be able to get his signature on the paper.
I think we were there when the car, actually, the engine started up for the very first time. I mean, we didn't even get to sit in it and drive it until sort of mid-December. Of course, the design of the car and the setup of the car was more or less in black and white. And it wasn't until we actually jumped in the car that there was a lot of things needed doing. We basically tested right the way up to Christmas. Then we had to go back between Christmas and the New Year. Then after New Year, straight out and did more testing. And, you know, initially, of course, it didn't go that well, but it was a remarkable turnaround.
The first competitive outing with Ford was in Monte Carlo and resulted in a tremendous third place. But a technical infringement on the water pump saw the team disqualified.
It's always a disappointment when something like that is taken away from you, but it was the very first rally with the team. You know, they had the chance to turn it around. It wasn't like we'd done half a season and it was going wonderfully, and then they found out there was an illegal water pump and then we'd lost everything that we'd done the year. In this case, it was just a one-off. I think he accepted it, we got on with it, and we looked to the next event.
That ended in retirement for McRae, but the third event, the Safari Rally, was a different matter.
You've got to get the car through the very difficult conditions. And I think it was a bit of a surprise for everybody, and I'm sure even Malcolm would admit that as well, that here we are, we had a great rally, we didn't have any technical issues, no punctures. We've got through and we won Safari Rally, the toughest rally in the World Rally Championship that there's ever been. You know, and everybody was quite taken aback. And this was only our third event, I think. The next event, we turned up in Portugal. Lo and behold, we won that rally too. And everybody thought, my God, we're on the crest of a wave. And little did we know that we retired from every other event for the rest of that year. And that was really frustrating.
Left into turn, hairpin left.
A huge accident. The car going from 100 miles an hour to 0 in just 1.3 seconds. The crew, thankfully, unhurt.
We had quite a big accident. We stopped in the stage just before box 27.
You always knew that Colin had very good sort of mechanical skill, good knowledge, and he knew exactly what he wanted out of the car. But also he was the fastest driver in the world at that point in time. And there's no better way or quicker way to develop your car than have somebody of that ability behind the wheel. But really, for me, that's where he was an outstanding. There was nobody that we've worked with before or since that had those technical skills.
While things improved for both Colin and Ford in 2000, it was 2001 where once again the popular Scot was on the brink of a second World Championship title.
This was it. We're going to win the championship on the Wales Rally GB. You know, all we had to do was to beat Richard Burns, stay in front of Richard Burns and Carlos. But always Colin tries to get a buffer just in case you have a puncture or a spin or something like that. But in this one particular place, it was a very high-speed section where, you know, you have very quick corners, one after another, where the pace notes literally have to come out like a machine gun. And it was a 5 right plus and 6 left minus over crest cut, and cut the right, pirouetted us, corkscrewed through the air. My God, did we bounce. We bounced and we bounced, and it was rolled into a ball.
He was pretty down with that. That was his fault. 6 inches too deep into a corner and caught a rock and it put the thing. But again, you know, that's rallying. I mean, Richard went on and he went off in the same stage. Just the lack of concentration can do that. But, you know, Richard got away with that, whereas Colin didn't.
A move to Citroën and Derek beside him again, he helped the French team to their first manufacturer's title.
The first rally that we did with Colin, it's Monte Carlo, and for me it's a very, very big remember because it was the complete podium with Citroën, with Sebastian, Colin and Carlos on the podium on Monte Carlo, and it's really fantastic. And then I have also a very good and very nice remember from Colin, because it was a very, very nice guy and really a great sportsman who never looked for excuses, and really I have very, very good remember.